let's move on to the next part of the series. Yes, non-routine situations. We have around 10 non-routine modules with around about 70 videos in total. And today, we want to give you an insight into the first module, communication. Now, what are you going to learn? What are we going to see? Well, firstly, the difference between FAA and ICAO phraseology. Captain Peter, who's presenting the modules, he's going to show you different incidents and accidents, and also he's going to show you different techniques for your ICAO test. Now, let's get on with it, and we hope you enjoy Module 1, Communication.
Hello, my name's Captain Peter Marks, and today we're going to take you to an introduction to our program. In an introduction to our program, what we're going to be talking about is the basics, the fundamentals. The fundamentals, obviously, for aviation English, lie in our ability to communicate correctly, clearly, and concisely, to avoid miscommunication, to be understood and to understand. In Spanish, we say entender y ser entendido. This is all about aviation safety. When we're looking at aviation safety, what we need to understand is that one of the main or contributory causes of aviation incidents and accidents worldwide has been miscommunication or a failure to understand and then follow instructions. So to enable you to understand better the situation, to be able to talk with a degree of knowledge, we are going to use videos in our classes. We recommend also that you can watch these videos again and again and again and get the idea. Once you have a story, then you have vocabulary, then you become the expert. Let's start off with having a look at the general idea of miscommunication between pilot and controller. And this is the subject of an American TV documentary. Let me play you that right now. What we're looking at here is,
in many cases, controllers don't know there is a language barrier until something has gone wrong. And by then, it's too late. Miscommunication between pilot and controller was cited as a contributing cause in the worst aviation disaster ever, when two 747s collided on the runway in the Canary Islands in 1977. 583 died. And again in 1996, when 349 died in a mid-air collision over India. And here in the U.S., 73 died in 1990 after a Colombian passenger jet literally ran out of fuel and crashed on Long Island. The Spanish-speaking co-pilot apparently didn't know the word emergency, which would have led controllers to immediately clear the plane to land.
What we're looking at here is basically in the 1990s, when we did not have CRM, crew resource management, we didn't have the technology that we had today. We were starting to see a lot of incidents and accidents caused by miscommunication and not understanding the controller. The presenter is now going to go on and talk about an incident in Colombia, American 965.
This problem goes beyond foreign pilots who fly into the U.S. It can also be an issue with American pilots in foreign airspace. And that's what happened here in the mountains of Colombia in December of 1995. The language barrier between a Colombian air controller and an American Airlines pilot turned out to be a critical link in a deadly chain of events.
We have begun our descent for landing at Cali. It's a lovely evening, as we had expected.
These are the voices of the flight crew of American Flight 965, minutes before they fly directly into the side of a mountain. These cockpit tapes have never before been broadcast.
I'd like to wish everyone a very, very happy holiday and a healthy and prosperous 1996. Thank you for coming with us.
It is 5 days before Christmas. The Boeing 757 is headed to Cali, Colombia, carrying 163 passengers and crew.
What happened here? It just doesn't look right on
When the captain and co-pilot realize they've made an error in calculating their approach to the Cali airport.
We got up here, didn't we? Yeah. How did we get up here? Come to the right now.
On the ground, the controller also knows something's wrong, but can't figure out how to tell the crew.
At that time, the Cali controller was blind in the sense that he had no radar due to a guerrilla war that was actually happening in Colombia. So he was going to the traditional ways of actually measuring distance. He was asking the aircraft, what is your DME to the airport, to the VOR?
What did you want, sir? DME? Okay, the DME is from Cali is 38.
Later, the controller would tell investigators that the transmission from the crew of Flight 965 made no sense to him. And while he would have said exactly that to a Spanish-speaking crew, the controller's English wasn't good enough for him to tell the pilots of American 965 just how off course they were.
Why don't you just go direct to Rosa then, all right? I'm going to put
Flight 965 makes a fatal left turn, heading straight toward an 8,000-foot mountain.
Oh, pull up, baby.
They attempted to pull up, but unfortunately they didn't lower the speed brakes and were not able to clear the terrain.
All but 4 died. An investigation blamed pilot error, but cited the Colombian controller's poor English as a major contributing cause.
Poor English as a major contributing cause. Okay.
So who's responsible for making sure pilots and controllers speak English well enough? The FAA has no authority over air travel outside the U.S. That job falls to ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, a kind of United Nations of the skies that's located here in Montreal. It's ICAO's rules that mandate English as aviation's official language, and even more confusing, ICAO's rules allow pilots and controllers to use the language of the country they're flying over, which might or might not be English. The result is a blur of voices at 30,000 feet as pilots and controllers communicate in the language they feel most comfortable with.
Well, what does that do for us? Let's stand back and look at that for a minute. If everybody is communicating in their native tongue and not speaking English, what is the situational awareness? Do they understand the other languages?
We saw and heard all of this for ourselves with a Colombian crew flying in and out of American airspace.
So long, thank you.
Inside the U.S., our pilots spoke flawless English. But outside the country, it's clear that English is anything but the universal language. This crew switched languages smoothly but repeatedly. To Spanish with a Cuban air controller. To English over Jamaica.
Thank you, man.
Bogotá, buenas noches.
And back to Spanish for our approach into Bogotá.
If I want to talk English in Colombia, I have to call in English and they will answer me.
So it's all about situational awareness. So what we're seeing is that miscommunication between the pilot and controller has been and can continue to be a contributing cause. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show another video, but when you're watching this video, I want you to keep in mind the questions on the right. What am I talking about here? These questions. So basically, what are we talking about? What happens when the controller doesn't understand English? What I'd like you to do is watch the video and tell the story. Then you become the expert. So what are we trying to determine here? Well, what we're going to see in the video is that the Argentinian air traffic controller at Ezeiza, Buenos Aires, clears an Air France to land using an ILS that has been out of service for 2 years. When the pilot asks, is the ILS serviceable? The air traffic controller says yes.
Este fue un grave incidente que pasó con un vuelo de Air France a mediados del 2005. el Air France 417. El sistema de aproximación por instrumentos, es decir, cuando las nubes están bajas, no podemos ver el piso, hay un aparato que nos guía, nos da el eje de pista y el haz de planeo. Entonces el avión baja y aterriza. El ILS, así se llama, de la pista 35, hace años que no funciona. Entonces, por viento, tenía que usar la pista 35. Lo que hicieron fue una aproximación a la pista 11 y después tenían que circular visualmente para entrar en la pista 35. El piloto de Air France le preguntó varias veces por el ILS de la pista 35. El controlador, que no entendía inglés, le dijo que sí, que estaba operativo.
So here the captain is saying, can you confirm that the ILS 35 is serviceable? The controller responds, runway 35, it's available, not the ILS. Captain then asks, the ILS is available? Oops, it's been out of service for years.
Cuando se ponen en final para aproximar a la pista 35, por supuesto no estaba operativo porque hacía años que no funcionaba.
Not only did he do it, but he's also authorized it. And even in Spanish, authorized, autorizado, is the same as the English. Now the captain's saying, obviously, that he's not receiving the signal from the ILS. Obviously, it's been out of service for 2 years. Now, the controller is advising the ILS 35 is out of service.
We are unable to proceed with this approach. I inquired about the pilot functioning. I was told it was in order, and at the last minute it just tell me it's not functioning anymore.
Y entonces le dicen que ascienda a 3.000 pies, que vuelva a hacer el circuito, que haga espera, le vuelven a hacer otra aproximación. Lo tienen dando vueltas, de nuevo para la 35, durante 22 minutos. A 600 metros de altura, estos aviones tragan una cantidad de combustible infernal. Fíjense qué grave que fue. Escuchen lo que dice el piloto de Air France.
I am declaring low fuel. This is Alpha 417, did you copy? Affirmative, sir. Report establishment the operator of wind 110. Okay, we're taking radar heading 310, and I would like to see the authorities on the ground, please. Low fuel, so I want priority for landing. Did you copy Alpha 417? I will be filing a report against you, and just whatever is truly, truly amazing.
¿Ustedes se creen que pasó algo? Absolutamente nada. Y este estuvo a punto de quedarse sin combustible porque había un ILS que no funciona hace años y un controlador que no entendía. El término error de piloto en investigación de accidentes no se usa más. Porque si un error de piloto tira abajo un avión, no podemos más volar con personas. Porque el error es una parte indivisible de la conducta humana. Entonces, la única defensa que tenemos contra eso es generar mecanismos que lo detecten en fase temprana y minimicen sus consecuencias. Dicho de otra manera, el error de un solo piloto afecta a un vuelo puntual. El error de un jefe de pilotos afecta a todos los vuelos de esa flota. Y el error de una autoridad aeronáutica afecta todas las aeronaves que cruzan por ese espacio aéreo. Como vamos a ver con el cohete balístico que casi baja un avión de Lufthansa, que es una de las compañías más seguras del mundo. Sin embargo, estaba cruzando uno de los espacios aéreos más inseguros del mundo, como es el nuestro, como lo que pasó esa noche. Es decir, que la información NOTAM, que es la que se nos da a los pilotos para volar, decía que los ejercicios de tiro no afectaban zona de control. Así lo fue.
Negative. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
That was an incident that happened maybe 15, 20 years ago. Now, even with the implementation of English and the ICAO exams to check English proficiency, we can have problems. Those problems, for example, occur in airspace, and I'm going to use South America right now here in Colombia, because in Colombia back in 2018, November, we had an unexpected event. What was the unexpected event? A last-minute diversion due to bad weather in Bogota, the capital city of Colombia. So now all of a sudden, instead of landing at Bogota, 14 aircraft are diverted from Bogota to Cali. You can imagine, you're the pilot, you're coming in international, you're now operating in airspace where all you hear is Spanish being spoken by local domestic carriers such as LATAM, Viva, and Avianca. Lufthansa's flying into this, and all he is hearing in Spanish, and now he has to divert for the first time to Cali. So what are we going to have? We're going to have stress and poor communication in English, and Lufthansa is asking for directions, and is asking to directions to a Cali controller who has a poor level of English communication. Let's take a look.